Baseball's biggest addict just died, and the truth behind Dave Parker's death reveals a story darker than most fans knew. The Cobra passed away on June 28, 2025, at age 74 from Parkinson's disease complications. But his death came just 29 days before he was supposed to be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. This timing wasn't just cruel luck. It was the final chapter in a life filled with addiction, controversy, and broken promises that kept him out of Cooperstown for decades. Dave Parker was once baseball royalty. In the late 1970s, he was everything a superstar should be. He could hit for power and average, steal bases, play amazing defense, and had an arm that could throw out runners from anywhere in right field. He won back-to-back National League batting titles in 1977 and 1978. In 1978, he was the unanimous MVP winner after leading the league in multiple categories. He was the All-Star Game MVP in 1979 and helped the Pittsburgh Pirates win the World Series that same year. Parker seemed destined for greatness, but then came the contract that changed everything. In January 1979, Parker signed a 5-year deal that made him baseball's first $1 million-per-year player. The timing couldn't have been worse for his reputation. Pittsburgh was falling apart economically. The steel industry had collapsed, taking 95,000 jobs with it. Families were struggling to put food on the table while Parker was getting rich playing a game. The fans turned on him immediately. They booed him relentlessly at home games. Worse than that, angry fans threw batteries, nuts, and bolts at him while he played right field. Parker later admitted that being the first black player to make that kind of money made the situation even harder. The city that once loved him now saw him as a symbol of everything wrong with professional sports. He went from hero to villain almost overnight. The money was just the beginning of Parker's problems. What fans didn't know was that their former hero was developing a serious cocaine addiction. From 1979 to 1982, Parker was using drugs regularly. He later testified that cocaine was constantly available because of his celebrity status. His performance started to suffer, and by his own admission, his game was slipping because of the drugs. Everything came crashing down in 1985 during the Pittsburgh drug trials. This wasn't some minor scandal. It was a federal investigation that exposed widespread cocaine use throughout Major League Baseball. Parker found himself at the center of it all. To avoid criminal charges, he accepted legal immunity in exchange for testifying against drug dealers. In a packed courtroom with reporters from every major news outlet watching, Parker admitted his addiction to the world. His testimony was devastating for his reputation. He confessed to using cocaine with consistency for 3 years. He admitted that his drug use had made his performance worse. The man who was supposed to be a role model for kids had become the poster child for everything wrong with baseball in the 1980s. The scandal didn't just hurt Parker personally. It changed how the entire sport dealt with drug issues. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Commissioner Peter Ueberroth suspended Parker and several other players for a full year. Though the suspension was later reduced, Parker had to donate 10% of his salary to drug programs, submit to mandatory drug testing for the rest of his career, and perform 100 hours of community service. But the real punishment came from his own team. The Pittsburgh Pirates, now under new ownership, decided they didn't want to pay Parker the millions still owed on his 1979 contract. They sued him, claiming his drug use was a breach of contract that negatively affected his performance and poisoned the team's relationship with fans. Parker was forced to settle out of court for significantly less money than he was originally promised. If you're shocked by how far Parker fell from grace, make sure to subscribe and let us know in the comments what you think about athletes who let addiction destroy their careers. His story shows just how quickly fame and fortune can disappear. The lawsuit left Parker bitter and angry. He later said he felt nothing but malice and hate for the Pirates organization. He believed they failed to acknowledge his years as one of baseball's best players. The relationship between Parker and Pittsburgh seemed permanently damaged. The drugs had cost him money, respect, and his place in the community that once adored him. To make matters worse, he was traded to Oakland in December 1987, ending his time with the team that had made him a star. Parker's problems extended far beyond Pittsburgh. When he became eligible for the Baseball Hall of Fame, voters remembered the scandal more than his statistics. For 15 years, he appeared on the writers' ballot. Despite having over 2,700 hits, 339 home runs, and 1,493 RBIs, he never received more than 25% of the vote. The 75% needed for induction seemed impossible to reach. His association with the drug trials had effectively blackballed him from baseball's most exclusive club. Voters felt that his off-field behavior outweighed his on-field accomplishments. The same scandal that had cost him money and respect was now keeping him out of Cooperstown. Other players from the drug trials, like Keith Hernandez, faced similar struggles getting Hall of Fame recognition. Parker's career did have some bright moments after the scandal. He had a late resurgence with the Cincinnati Reds in 1985, finishing second in MVP voting. He won another World Series with the Oakland Athletics in 1989, but these achievements couldn't erase the damage done by the drug trials and the years of negative publicity that followed. After retiring in 1991, Parker largely stayed out of the spotlight. He had been one of only 5 players in history with at least 500 doubles, 300 home runs, 150 stolen bases, and 2,700 hits. His statistical resume was clearly Hall of Fame worthy, but the voters who remembered his cocaine years weren't ready to forgive and forget. Time slowly began to heal some wounds. In 2012, Parker was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, though he didn't make it public until 2013. The diagnosis was hard for someone who had always seen himself as a baseball warrior. He initially struggled to accept help from others, finding it difficult to show vulnerability after years of projecting strength and confidence. But Parker's battle with Parkinson's started to change how people saw him. He established a foundation to raise awareness about the disease and support research efforts. His public struggle with a debilitating condition showed a more human side that fans hadn't seen during his playing days. The man who had once been defined by his swagger and controversy was now fighting a different kind of battle. The disease led to an unexpected reconciliation with Pittsburgh. When Parker returned for a 1979 team reunion, fans who had once thrown objects at him gave him a heartfelt standing ovation. The city that had turned against him decades earlier was finally ready to separate the player from his past mistakes. In 2022, he was inducted into the inaugural Pittsburgh Pirates Hall of Fame. Parker's health continued to decline as Parkinson's took its toll. He needed double knee replacement surgery from years of wear and tear on his body. The once powerful athlete was becoming increasingly frail, but his courage in facing these challenges earned him respect from fans and former players alike. On December 8, 2024, the Classic Baseball Era Committee finally gave Parker what he had been waiting for since 1997. He was elected to the National Baseball Hall of Fame, receiving 14 of 16 votes. After decades of being shut out by writers who couldn't forget his drug use, a special committee was willing to focus on his complete body of work. The election should have been the perfect ending to Parker's story. After all the controversy, lawsuits, and health problems, he was finally going to take his place among baseball's immortals. He had kept his planned induction speech for 15 years, waiting for this moment. Everything seemed to be falling into place for a triumphant conclusion to his complicated career. But fate had other plans. On June 28, 2025, just 29 days before his scheduled induction ceremony, Dave Parker died from complications related to Parkinson's disease. He would never get to deliver the speech he had been holding on to for so long. He would never get to stand on the stage in Cooperstown and receive the recognition he felt he deserved. The induction ceremony went ahead as planned on July 27, 2025, but it was his son who delivered Parker's speech. It was a bittersweet moment that perfectly captured the tragedy and triumph of Dave Parker's life. He had finally made it to the Hall of Fame, but he couldn't be there to enjoy it. Subscribe to hear more stories about baseball's most controversial figures, and tell us in the comments whether you think Parker's legacy is defined more by his achievements or his mistakes. Dave Parker's story reminds us that talent alone isn't enough. His journey from superstar to addict to Hall of Famer shows that redemption is possible, even if it comes too late. The Cobra finally got his recognition, but the price of his earlier choices followed him until the very end.